this class.
Pretty sure they were doing math on the board.
Right. We will leave our math colleagues to their torture. So, can everyone see my screen?
Yes.
I want you to know that I have posted a reconciliation for the Module 2 assessment so that we can set the stage for your final attempt with the final version of the Module 2 assessment later this week or early next week. Please complete the reconciliation. You may recall that you reconciled your first attempt of the Module 1 assessment, and after posting corrections of the errors, you made the final attempt with the retake of Module 1, and many of you improved your scores on the Module 1 assessment. Even if you didn't, it was good practice. It's a preview of the cumulative exam that's coming. And you also we also dropped the lowest score, right? So if the first attempt was higher, then we kept the first score. If the second attempt was higher, we kept the second score, but we zeroed out the original score, right? I want to thank each of you who have been making a concerted effort over the last week and over the weekend to make up any additional submissions, assignments, and solutions. I have been knocking out the grading and posting of credit in other courses. And as I'm about to start this course, it's a good thing to see most everybody in there, so that when we score these, we do it all consistently when I'm in a good mood, right? So the goal is to give everybody their best foot forward. And I appreciate the fact that all of you took our initial midterm grades and adjusted accordingly, so that we can return assignments and submissions sooner. Okay. This module is an amazing module. This is the most fun, I think, of all the modules in this course. And we really want to spend some quality time in here. And one of the things that I've noticed is that if you're not careful, things get really screwed up very quickly with the coding. And so I do have some additional reading after chapters 3 and 4 of the textbook, and we actually use some basic database, some basic database work to experience some what we would call data mining, right? So we create a database, and then we do some analysis of the data sets, and then there is analysis of the analysis. So in a sense, that's data mining. It's a little more to it. We'll have a link and something you can watch. One of the things that I wanted to cover with you today, though, are two important aspects of the assignments that are due. So the first one is going to set the stage so that you have the best opportunity to, and this should read PG book. All right, so I'm going to change this. It should read PG book, and I'm going to make sure this reads PG book, right? So it's not service, it's PG book. PG book maintenance. So, yeah, sorry about that. So this is something we're doing in in our operating systems class as well, because of the dependencies. And this is another reason this is such a good day, such a fine day. I get to walk you through the process to upgrade your virtual box to a whole new version. So up to this point, when you have worked with VirtualBox, you've been working out of version 6.1.38. But today is an auspicious occasion for the very simple reason that a major upgrade has released. So it has little better features and sensibilities, but
Does this mean I can return to VirtualBox?
Yes, that's where we're going with this. I'm so excited because if you go to, so you have an assignment to update your system to make sure that it's in good working order before we start tackling the custom programming. If you don't maintain your system, the stuff isn't going to work as well, and you'll scratch your head and think it's the code you wrote, and it won't be the code you wrote. It'll be the fact that, okay, things have changed. Been a lot of security patches and fixes over the last 2 weeks. But the single most important thing to know is that in VirtualBox, they have finally, with the release of 7, included support for new Macs. Woohoo! So new MacBook Pros, new MacBook Airs that have the M1 chip. There is a developer preview for the Mac OS running on the latest, greatest Mac hardware. And for those of you who have suffered trying to figure out how to get this stuff to work on your Mac, now you have an option. You don't have to purchase a subscription to Parallels for the Mac just to try to get your appliance to work. Now, if you've already gone to the trouble of setting up an alternate Linux machine, you do not have to toss that. You can continue to use what you've set up if you started the process to install an alternate version of Linux in an identical manner to the PG Book appliance. But I do want to point out the fact that there's a couple of things that are very important when you upgrade a major version number. So usually when you're doing minor version numbers, like from 6.1.36 to 6.1.38, and you're posting patches and fixes, and it eliminates bug errors and stuff like that. When you're installing a whole new version, it's considered good form to close out your running virtual machines. And so you'll notice here, I have my PG Book running. And when I'm in a hurry, I can pause this machine, right? So I can go to the machine menu and I can pause. And then when I close the window, it says, what do you want to do? Save the machine state. And it's important to understand that a major version upgrade, you do not want to initiate with virtual machines that have been in a saved state. So if it's in a saved state, what you want to do is run the machine, get it out of a saved state, and then gracefully shut it down. So you want to shut down your machine gracefully to make sure it's powered off, any and all machines that you may have, before you go to the control panel to completely remove. So you're going to close all your virtual machines, then you're going to close VirtualBox. And after you download your version of the new software and the extension pack, don't forget the extension pack. Do not forget the extension pack. Before you install this, instead of just clicking on it like you did before, you're going to go to the control panel. And if you start typing control, you should see that. If your screen looks like this, you're going to make it look like that instead with the categories. Use large icons. Go to programs and features. Find the Oracle virtual machine, VirtualBox 6.1.38 or 6.1.36 or whatever older version you have. Then you're going to want to you're going to select it and then uninstall it. You may even want to reboot your system after you remove your previous version completely. The other thing you want to do is you want to make sure that if you're running any games, if you're juggling any other apps, if you have a lot of other windows open, you want to close all those out and reboot your system after you have removed the previous version of VirtualBox. Now, I would also strongly recommend that you copy the SHA-256-bit checksums. Now, what is that? You may find that when you try to install VirtualBox, right after you remove the old VirtualBox, if you, let's see, let's go into the, I want to open up a new File Explorer window here. If I open up my downloads folder and I start to install this and I run into an error, I run into a problem, what's going to happen is that I want to check to see if my download is corrupt. So I have my VirtualBox download here and I have my extension pack here. And what I want to do is calculate the 256 hash, 256-bit hash. It's called the SHA-256, right? And I can do that by having a hash tool off the Microsoft Store. It's called Hash Tool. I open this up and I select a file, making sure that of the hash types, I don't want Md5, I don't want SHA-1. Those are older hash types that have been deprecated or retired. I'm going to use the 256-bit. I'll select my VirtualBox in my downloads, and then I will generate a hash. Wait for it. There it is. If I copy this, and then I put it in a temp notepad, right? And I do this, and I just create a new line. I can go to the website, and if I click the SHA-256 checksums, I know there's a lot of different versions. The hashes for many different versions, including the extension packs, are shown on screen. And that can be very, well, can be a little disconcerting. But what you're looking for is this version right here. If you downloaded for the 64-bit version for Windows 10 or Windows 11. So you're going to copy this value right here. And when you copy it, you're going to go back to your notepad and paste it. Now, I always like doing this manually just because I think quick visual verification is foolproof, and sometimes tools you can hash from a list and you can compare with some fancy features here, but that's how I like doing it. You're also going to do the same thing for your VirtualBox extension pack, which is this one here. So as you copy and paste this thing, you can, let's do this, yeah. I'm going to copy this and then paste this underneath. So this is the extension pack, right? So if you're having problems installing, you want to check to make sure you don't have corrupt install files. You can calculate a hash, and then I go back to my hash tool. I'm going to go ahead and select a different file this time. I'm going to select my extension pack. It's going to generate a different key now. So I copy that one, compare the two. This is something you can do for additional credit, but basically it's telling me that this is the copy on the web and this is the copy you have on your machine, and bit for bit, byte for byte, in its entirety, nothing is corrupt. So if you run into problems with the install of the new version, the first step is to verify, okay, did I get something that was hashed? No, something that was mashed up and crunched and munched on the internet. I have a corrupt file. So I calculate a hash of the file that I downloaded, and compare it with the original value that the manufacturer provides on the website. Are there any questions about what we're doing to verify a hash for my download?
No, we're just to reiterate, we're just getting a copy of the checksum that's on the website, right?
You're getting a copy of the checksums on the website, and then you're also generating the hash using a hashing tool that you install on your machine, which is generically useful when you want to verify whether or not something has changed or become corrupted. Hash tool 1.2 is available on the Microsoft Store. Thank you for asking that, Courtney. So in the Microsoft Store, if you open it up and you type in hash tool 1.2, it's a free application and it works very nicely for something that's free. So did that answer your question? When you install the new version, you're going to see an error unless you download an additional component if you're in Windows 10. Now, strangely, I think in Windows 11, the Visual C++ redistributable package, it's an extra set of components for open source and coded applications. You have to load this. You might see an error message that says, oh, you got to run the Visual C++ 2019 version of the redistributable components. That's included. There's a link in the assignment where you can go straight to this, right? If you click this link, it'll download that very redistributable. It'll look like this right here, okay? So what you do is right click this and run as administrator, and then it'll say, oh, you should really reboot now that you've loaded this. And after you reboot it, then you would select VirtualBox, right click, run as admin. It'll, as soon as you open it up, it'll say, oh, do you want to load the extension pack? You do that, and away you go. Any questions?
Question.
Yes.
Are we installing the old one or no?
You're
Like,
not
is that needed?
You're not installing the old ones.
Uninstalling.
Yeah, you're going to uninstall the old ones. Yeah, you have to uninstall the old one first. And if it's on a Mac, you want to drag it to the the trash can. If it's on a Windows machine, you're going to look it up in Control Panel under something called Programs and Features, and you're going to uninstall the old version. You want to load the 7.0.0 version. In particular, if you're a new Mac owner with one of those new, really fast chips, now's your chance to try this on, and you can actually run the appliance on your Mac natively the way we intended. If you're interested in doing that, I'm just saying you can. It's an option now. It's a very cool option. Did that answer your question?
Yes.
Okay.
Dr.
Now,
Kent, I have a question.
yes.
As for the hash tool, how can we, if we was to use it on a Mac, how would we do that? Because it's not, I checked the App Store, the one by Microsoft is on the App Store, and I tried going online and it's not like giving me something to like run it. Like, that kind of option, nothing to download or run it. It's not giving me that kind of option.
That is a great question, and I'm glad you asked that. You see the option here for MD5 checksums?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So MD5 hashes are still good for verifying whether or not a download file has changed. Even though it's possible for a hacker to exploit those, it's really not likely. And what's going to happen is that you pick the MD5 hash for what you downloaded, probably this one here, yeah. And in your Mac, from the terminal prompt, there is a command you can use to generate the hash. Now, this is what you'd use if you were on a Windows machine. On a Mac, you would use the DMG hash, the MD5 hash. So you download the OSX DMG, and what you would do is open up your terminal and then navigate using the CD command to your downloads folder. And there's a command that you run. It's easy to look up. You just Google MD5 calculation on a Mac OS. It's a native command that's built into the terminal of the Mac. It'll generate a value, and the value should match here. So you can highlight this value, and then you can highlight the screen on your Mac, and those two should match precisely. Does that answer your question?
So basic, okay. Let me see if I, okay.
Oh, and by the way,
Mm-hmm.
this one is the one you would use for MacBook and MacBook Air with the new M1 chip or M2 chip. Okay.
The beta 4.
Yes.
So that's the one we're downloading. Okay.
Yeah, it's the developers preview, which again, I think is really exciting. I don't ever recall an instance where an entire product line was disenfranchised by so many virtual machine providers. And that's been true of the Mac environment. Now, any questions about this assignment? So now there is a second piece to this, right? So one thing you want to do is update your VirtualBox environment, but then you also want to go in here before we start our 3.2 assignment. You're going to learn Python. Woohoo! If you've never done Python before, it's actually pretty sexy stuff, and it's easy to learn, and it's sensible. And I have the ideal coach that we've identified out on YouTube to walk you through some quick exercises. And remind me, please, to explain the difference between Anaconda and Python in native mode on the PG book. We'll get into that in a minute. Were there any other questions? Oh, I got to tell you about this one. So the other half of this is you update your VirtualBox. So you got to get a screenshot that looks like this. And you capture that, and that's the first half of the exercise. Where the heck did my VirtualBox go? I thought I had it right on the screen. Oh, there it is, right up in the corner. When I reinstalled it, it put it up at the top. You want to go here to here, and I want to see 7.0.0. That's the first half of the 3.1 assignment. Any questions about the first half of the 3.1 assignment?
Okay, I have a question. So seeing as the assignment acts of VirtualBox, so that means everybody, including us Mac users, are now moving over to VirtualBox.
No, that's a good question. If you have already decided you're going to be a Mac pioneer and you have chosen not to use VirtualBox and you would like to continue with your Mac environment as it is, then all you have to do is update your Mac. And you go to About This Mac, and then there's a software update option, and there's actually been like a recent release in the last couple of weeks since we started the semester, okay?
Okay.
And you can submit that instead of this screen if you don't want to. However, I will post additional credit if you have a new Mac and you always wanted to run a virtual machine, you wanted to use the appliance, you never could, and it's only because you bought the latest Mac that has the best hardware, and that's just lousy, right? That's just terrible. So if you decide to take the plunge and invest additional time, download the appliance and use VirtualBox 7.0 on a brand new Mac, I will honor your additional efforts with additional credit. So I'm glad you asked that. Okay. That is also true, you know, if you've already committed to a Raspberry Pi, then you can go out and update your Raspberry Pi, and then there's an option to update the firmware on your Raspberry Pi that I recently witnessed a student demonstrate for the first time. And that was an eye-opener, because I always knew that there was firmware and BIOS on a Raspberry Pi, but a student in your class was doing independent research and said, oh, in addition to the other updates, the actual firmware on the chip can be updated. We'll talk about that in just a second. Any questions about the first part of assignment 3.1? So you're either capturing the new version on screen, or you're capturing an update of the existing version you've set up. Okay. And then in here, in your PG book, what I want you to do is to do what you already know. So the second half of this assignment is actually very easy. The only thing you're going to do is log into your PG book and open this up. And you're going to say, well, wait a minute, we did this earlier this semester. Yeah, you did. Yes, you did. And it's a habit that comes with computing applications. You need to basically go into a privileged root prompt, right? By entering that command and then entering your, oh, and by the way, did everybody see that pop up? Everybody see that? The Windows, the guest editions showed up. So under devices, I need to insert the guest editions. This is an additional step. So once the guest editions is inserted, I can basically go into my filing cabinet and look at my computer. In a minute, where is my, I should be able to see the guest editions here. Choose and create a disk file. Sometimes you have to kind of prime the pump. Well, no, the guest editions ISO should be in there. Let's look in here. In storage. This is empty. So we want to choose a disk file. And evidently there is a separate guest editions ISO you can download. Usually when you load the extensions, it automatically loads the ISO. So that's something I'll research, and we'll revise the assignment to include that option as well. But and that's really weird. I guess that's and I don't see the disk in here. Usually when you click on computer, you get a chance to see other things. If I go to the devices and insert the disk image, it popped up. The screen popped up over here just a moment ago. There we go. Okay, so it was a little stubborn. Does everybody see what happened there? I had to do it more than once, yeah? So got to be a little persistent. If at first you don't succeed, right? Try again, go to devices, insert the disk. You want to run it. It's going to run. I'm going to have to put in my PG book password to authenticate that command, and it's going to go ahead and install the additional version of my, when your extensions are included with the VirtualBox setup, when you double click this here to load this along with the VirtualBox, it creates a new guest editions CD that runs this thing that allows it to update. And that will resolve a lot of issues with device discrepancies, hardware errors, and that kind of thing between your host machine and the virtual machines. Are there any questions about the guest editions installation? Now, as soon as this finishes running, I'm going to run one other command. Can anybody remember what that other command to update your PG book was? We did some time ago. So generically, you want to update your PG book, not just the guest edition CD, right? Since I'm at a pound prompt, does anybody remember this? Oh, no, please talk to me. Somebody.
Upgrade or update?
Yes, update and then upgrade. Thank you. All right. Yeah, it looks like we have.
We
the
have
same-
everything we need for this, for the assignment, right?
Yes, you should have everything you need for the assignment. So what you're going to do is say update and then 2 ampersands because we want to chain these two commands together, and then say apt-get upgrade. We're going to hit enter. So this one says over here, hey, press return to close this window. The running kernel modules will not be replaced until the system is restarted. That's pretty serious. So when you insert the new guest editions, it's actually loading very low level hardware drivers, and that helps your machine run better. And that running better is what it's all about, right? So anything that'll keep us from having to scratch our heads and ask why stuff isn't working properly is important. Now it does tell us that some packages didn't load, right? But on the whole, I'm thinking this is pretty good. So some things didn't have a release file. Not too worried about that. You want a screenshot of this window and this window, right? So once you have your virtual PG book showing on the desktop in a window, you can click on your desktop, hit print screen, open up, let's open up a new paint window or a Word document, paste it, and that's part 2. That will complete the assignment. That's the second half of the assignment, to run an update on the PG book itself, and then to make sure that the guest editions is also updated here, okay? Any questions about the second half of the 3.1 assignment? So I'm gonna go ahead.
No, I think that's covers it.
Yeah, pretty much. Now, I get really jazzed when I see this on screen. And I got to tell you that, right, so the 3.2 assignment, you'll notice it's due Saturday, 15 October. So the 3.1 assignment is due by the start of class Thursday. We're going to be doing some things hands-on in class Thursday. You want your machine in good shape and complete 3.1 by Thursday. You will lose credit permanently forever and not have a chance to resubmit if you're not ready on Thursday, because we'll spend half the class trying to help people troubleshoot their stuff, right? So we want to make sure that everybody takes a little bit of time to get their virtual machine in a good shape with a new version, the latest version. Now, this activity. We're going to walk through some of this on Thursday, and your machine needs to be purring like a kitten at that point. And these are samples of the criteria that you need to be able to submit once you are finished walking through each of the tutorials. So CS Dojo is a YouTube channel that is hosted by a former Google employee who calls himself YK. He's Japanese. And YK became a subject matter expert in machine learning and artificial intelligence. In fact, if you're interested in learning how to use Python to grind out some very cool machine learning and artificial intelligence code, once YK gets you in a good place for Python to start, then you can go. Now, here is a caution I would offer. Some of you are computer science students, and you're thinking, I don't need to mess with Python. I've already done Java, right? Some of you are physics students who have messed around with Python, or math students who have messed around in Python for other reasons in other classes. And I would caution against drawing premature conclusions about the value of what YK shows. Put another way, we have a class called CSC 110, Introduction to Programming, and it teaches the basic concepts of programming, and it does it in plain English with pseudocode, but basically you can walk right across from there into Python and do everything you learn in 110 and write your own code. Now, here's the fun part. If you walk through the tutorials 1 through 11, these are just the first 3. I just want you to learn the first 3 for class. But YK has 11 parts for Python for absolute beginners. And he assumes that no one has really had any background in it. And he explains it in a manner that is so precise and so efficient. He is able to do in 11 20 to 30 minute segments what is covered in 90% of the Introduction to Python textbook that's used for CSC 110. Now, when you think about it, 10 episodes, 20 to 30 minutes, you binge watch more than that in a single weekend, don't you? I'm just saying, right? Or am I wrong? Do we not have any like streaming enthusiasts here that binge watch some of their favorite programs, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, it's kind of hard to get a little excited about Python. But one thing I wanted to share with you that was really important to understand is that the kind of Python that YK teaches has one bad habit. This is the one thing that YK does that's bad. YK uses single letter variables. He uses single letter variables in his instructional videos. And I am asking you, when you watch YK's video and you want to try it in your PG book, that you need to do it, but instead of using single letter variables, just mix it up a little bit and use something a little more descriptive, okay? Like this. Everybody understand what I'm saying? Now, yeah.
Yep.
If you don't be shocked if you don't get full credit. Now, the other thing that I want to tell you, the other thing that I want to share with you is that if you want to do this completely in PG book, it's a little different. And here's what I want to explain. So I'm going to go ahead and start the, I thought I had it running. PG book, right? Now, if I want to follow along with YK and I come into my PG book and I do this. Does everybody understand that when I enter the command Python, I have a blinking cursor, right? There are two modes that Python operates in. And really and truly, what we want you to do is to start to write basic custom applications, very basic programming, but very effective programming, very understandable programming. We want you to have a taste of it. And in order to do this, what often happens is that people go to here, and I'm going to go ahead and open up a new terminal. And they go to, they go to a text editor. And I'm going to call this test.py. Okay, so this is my test Python script, right? So this is Nano. It's a very efficient text editor. And if I type in print, and this is just a quick example, and it wouldn't shock me if this stuff didn't work. I say yes. I'm going to save it to test py. Can everybody see this?
Yes.
So now when I want to run this, I have to type in the command Python, and then I put a dot. So dot, dot / test.py. Well, that worked. It ran hello world. So that's just a one-line example of how I can operate. But over here, I'm in interactive mode. And interactive mode means that I can execute, well, if I use a text editor, I can have many more statements that execute. And when I run it, I'll get some kind of outcome. And usually there will be some errors. And the problem with operating in this mode is that you can't really see what's going on. If you're in interactive mode here, and you type in print, because I want to print some output to the screen, right? So I'm just using a simple function in Python called print. And whatever I put in double quotes here, hello, CSE 239. And I hit enter. It's going to execute that one line. But most Python programs are multi-step. They have many statements. They have decision, logical conditions that can be tested for. There are many lines. And what you're going to find out is that if you write a Python program in a text editor and then run it, you're going to get errors. Then you got to go back into the text editor, and it's very tedious. It's very troublesome. In this mode where you're interactive, you can try it a line at a time, and that's good. Okay, so you can kind of follow along with what YK is doing on the screen when he uses Anaconda. Now here's an option for you. You can follow along with what YK is doing on his screen in interactive mode by first entering the word Python, and then you get this prompt, and that says, okay, whatever I put in here a line at a time, I can follow along the video with YK, right? Everybody with me?
Yeah.
Okay. Or instead of being in PG book, for this assignment only, you can install Anaconda, right? And YK walks you through it in the first activity. What am I saying? You can load Anaconda on a Windows machine or a Mac and follow along exactly how.
Chasing that A and want to save time on proofreading? Grammarly makes editing one click simpler.
Well, okay.
We
That's
can
a really
suggest
long
ways
2
to
seconds.
rephrase
Come on.
whole sentences right in your paper.
All right.
And I'm also a former software developer at Google. And this is my new series, Python tutorial for absolute beginners. And this is my video number 1, what are variables? So this series.
Now listen, I'm going to tell you this right now. Put your pride aside. If you've had coding courses before, YK has a way of explaining the inside of a variable and explaining how this all works. And he really does a very, very efficient job. And this is why he is a rock star. He quit his job at Google. He makes far more money doing this. He explains things with Python that other people spend years learning, and he does it within a few minutes. I thought I had struck it rich when I discovered this talent, because I thought, wow, if people want to get up to speed fast in some of their methods for coding, this is the guy to follow. But in order to do a good job of it, you want to go through the entire beginner series from start to finish. The other thing I'm going to tell you about is that he is a big fan of this environment called Jupyter Notebook, which is installed when you load Anaconda. And what this allows you to do is create an environment where you can try each programming line one at a time, and you see the output right away. In other words, he's working in interactive mode, but kind of like on steroids. So what am I saying? If you don't want to follow his steps on PG Book in interactive mode, you can choose to install what he advocates you use, and you can put it on your Mac or on your Windows machine and run it natively on your Mac or Windows machine for the purposes of following through the 3 tutorials that I want you to engage for this assignment. So you do not have to run with this environment interactively and follow along and then think, okay, but his screen looks different. It looks different, but it works in a similar manner. YK's tutorial environment kind of combines the benefits of the old school way of doing things with the interactive way of doing things with Jupyter Notebook. If you've never experienced Jupyter Notebook before, it's actually pretty powerful. The other reason I would advocate that you try or consider giving Jupyter Notebook a try is because when you install Anaconda, there are other development environments besides Python in Anaconda. Okay. So has anyone ever heard of Ruby?
Yeah, I've heard of Ruby.
Okay. How about R? The programming language R.
No, never heard of that one.
R is used on some websites, and it's like if you took a Ginzu knife and you crossed it with a chainsaw, you'd have R in terms of statistics. If you want to do some extremely powerful supercomputing kinds of things with statistics, R is a programming language that is becoming very popular because it allows developers to get, well, it allows them to incorporate some very sophisticated algorithms in their web design, right? So it is a way to develop applications with a lot of statistics embedded in it. Ruby is kind of what we'd call a platform. Ruby on Rails is like a whole development environment where you're learning, and it sounds like they're related, Ruby and R. And there is technically a way to work all of that, but sometimes people get confused when they see Ruby and then they see references to R, and then they think that R is an abbreviation for Ruby. It's not. Okay, I just thought I would share that with you. In any case, if you're comfortable in the PG book environment and you'd like to follow along with YK's tutorial in here, then you can make quick work of it. Just watch it, do it in here, and you're done. Okay. If you're interested in doing something really cool in terms of development, what you're going to want to do instead, and again, if I see that people have gone the distance and they've taken, see, here's the next, now the link is in the assignment tutorial number 2, how to use if then if else statements in Python. That's the second tutorial in the series. Don't let the absolute beginners adjective guilt you or shame you into not giving this your undevoted attention. In any case, when you install Anaconda, it's going to load a bunch of packages on your laptop, and you can follow along and complete all of the assignment using YK's development environment in Jupyter Notebook. If you're using this, when he walks through the Jupyter Notebook setup, you don't have to do that. You can skip that, okay? So the first part of the first, where am I here? There we are. First part of the first video is about how to set up Jupyter Notebook.
Hello. So just quickly, what is Python and what can you do with it? It's one of the most popular programming languages out there, and it's used at smaller companies as well as larger companies, including Google. And many universities use Python as the introductory programming language in their computer science courses. And one advantage of Python is that it's fairly easy to learn because it has fairly simple syntax. It's used for many different applications, including websites' backend code, which is the code that runs on your server, as opposed to the code that runs on your device, whether it's a phone or a laptop. And it's also popular for data analysis and scientific research purposes. Okay, so let's now go ahead and install Python on your computer. Usually when people develop a program using Python or any other language for that matter, they usually use something called IDE, which stands for Integrated Development Environment. It's an environment that includes everything you need pretty much to develop a program. It has a nice text editor in which you can write your code, and then the ability to run your program, as well as something called a debugger, which allows you to quickly get rid of all the bugs in your program. And if you want to use an IDE to follow my series, I'd personally recommend PyCharm's Community Edition. So in this series, instead of using a traditional IDE, I decided to use something called Jupyter Notebook. So Jupyter Notebook is an environment for writing and testing your program quickly, and it's actually popular with the scientific community and for data analysis purposes.
There's a huge and important concept in software engineering. You're working in teams, you're creating a solution for an entire organization, an entire enterprise. Let's all pretend that you're working in a research lab for Dow Chemicals or 3M or Johnson & Johnson, or you know, Tesla, right? Let's say that pick your favorite company, GE, you know, General Motors, Raytheon, they do rockets, you know. Point is, you are going to understand if you load Jupyter Notebook and you're like, oh shoot, I've already got all this investment and overhead in my PG book virtual machine. Yeah, you do. But what you're going to find here is that as soon as you finish walking through the install, you can add all of these other components to quickly learn all of these other development environments. It's very fast and very easy to understand how to learn the code when you fix the errors before you try to run it. One of the biggest reasons that programmers, budding programmers, never become professionals. They start to write a program and they get one bug after another, after another, after another, and they never get rid of the bugs, and they can't run their darn, it's a 10-line program and it keeps throwing an error and I don't know why it won't run. And it's just frustrating, frustrating, frustrating. The method I'm talking about, where you write a line of code, test a line of code, write a line of code, test a line of code, it's called test-driven development. You write stuff and you test it right away as you write it. Before you do the next line, you make sure the line you're writing works. Now, I know that I'm explaining something that seems painfully basic, but you'd be shocked at how many people try to do this crap in their head. Don't. This is like the math teacher. Has anyone ever had a math class where you got a test back and the math teacher cut you points because you did not show your work?
I've seen that happen.
You've seen that happen. So if I ask everybody to raise their hand right now on the participants list of students in this class who maybe lost a point at any time in their life because, well, they put an answer down on a math test and it was wrong, but the teacher said, well, you know, you didn't show your work, so I can't give you any credit, right? And you lost points. People do that thing in your head bit with math, and it's killer with coding. If you become comfortable enough with coding and you start to spitball and do it in your head, I'm talking to you, computer science students, you know, what you're going to find is that it won't work, except you're still thinking in Java and it's Python, something simple, right? Which is why you have to test each line as you go. Anyway, enough said. I want you to dive in, and by the end of this week, 11:59 p.m. Saturday, I want you to have these 3 introductory lessons finished. Okay? And I highly recommend taking the extra time, going out to the website. Now, these are dated, what? What's the date on here?
December 26th.
2017.
Uh-huh. Yeah, 2017. How many subscribers does he have?
1.87 million.
Almost 2 million subscribers. Subscribers, not viewers. Not viewers. How many people have watched this video? Hello. 8 million views, right? Now, that's pretty amazing when you think about it, because 8 million views for a coding video, there aren't many out there that get this kind of play, and there's a reason for it. I want you to find a quiet, this is 25 minutes, okay? You spend more time streaming and binge watching. I want you to find a quiet place. I want you to focus and not do anything else. I want you to weed out all the other distractions, and I want you to give this one video 25 minutes, honest minutes of your time with your phone off, because it'll change your life. You'll start to see, wait a minute, oh, that's how this works. Oh, wait a minute, I've always misunderstood this simple thing. Half of the challenge of getting us to a place where we're comfortable coding and creating our own custom applications, because there is nothing more powerful in technology than the ability to create your own. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. The world has changed because some people using tech have figured out, you know what, we're going to build our own. And they're not afraid of it. They don't go out on Amazon and figure out how to buy somebody else's software package and it doesn't really do it. They build it, right? That's what this class is about. Now, I know I'm kind of preaching and I feel like an evangelist at this point, a little bit. But this guy's a rock star for a reason. And he gave up the rest of his life to share his knowledge And if you ever spend any quality time in this course watching someone and paying attention, this guy's earned it. Okay? So on Thursday, I want to hear some comments that people have taken the time between now and Thursday to at least watch this first one and install Jupyter Notebook and give it a try. Okay? And if you don't want to do Jupyter Notebook and you just want to get it done, no harm, no foul. If you're like, man, I got a busy life, I got all kinds of things I got to do, and I'm just going to do the interactive thing that you showed us in class. I'll watch the video, I'll get it done, I'll capture the screenshots. I'm comfortable with coding already. I'll understand that.
Oh,
I won't mind that.
question.
Yes.
You're mentioning using the virtual machine or Jupyter Notebook, but what happens if you already have your own IDE that has Python? Is that okay?
That's okay as well. That's not a bad
Okay.
question, and I'm glad you asked it. Now, in real terms here, if I go to Google and I go to Anaconda, download. They have a version for the Mac, they have it for Windows, right? You want Windows 10 64-bit, that's what you want right here if you're in Windows. If you're on Mac, of course, you want Mac. Get it from anaconda.com. So when you download this, you're going to pick whichever version you want. This is if you're running Linux. So what are we saying? You could probably download Anaconda on a Raspberry Pi. That's a flavor of Linux that might run actually, or on the Mac or on Windows. I'm going to go ahead here to click Windows. I'm going to get the 64-bit graphical installer, and I'm going to go ahead and load it. Now again, it's going to load kind of a web-based interface. It's going to run through your web browser. I'm going to tell you this, it's running a miniature website on your laptop to do the interactive thing. It's pretty cool stuff. What I like is that built into that Anaconda, it's not just Python, it's R, it's, oh my gosh, so many different flavors and versions of IDEs. But you get a chance to find your mistakes before they kill you, before they frustrate you, before Saturday night is here and gone and you didn't get a chance to go out and have a life, right? Okay. Any questions before we close today? Now, what else do I expect you to do this week? I want you to reconcile. I'm just reminding you, I need you to reconcile your Module 2 assessment. Don't forget that we need you to reconcile your Module 2 assessment before the end of the week. Okay? Everybody got that? Okay. And then in Module 3, I want you to get started with YK, but I also want you to get started with the references. Glance through the study guide and the addendum. We'll try some hands-on stuff Thursday. So I'll show you some things and then you'll do them on your screens. And then if you run into a snag, we'll get there together, right? So we'll crawl, walk, and run on Thursday. But you're gonna miss the show if you don't get your virtual box spinning like a top with the latest edition. So if you get stuck between now and the start of class Thursday, I want you to send me an email and say, hey, I don't want to be the only person who's in the room, but they're not dressed for the main event. Okay? Because I'm going to be calling on people to share their screens. Let me say that again. I'm going to be calling on people to share their screens on Thursday. So, all right. I'm going to stop sharing and stop recording. Any questions before we close for the day?